Hi everybody, I'm BJ. I'm the genealogy librarian at the Maine State Library. And today I'm going to talk about using Worldcat, which is actually one of my favorite tools that's not specifically aimed at genealogists, but that has made genealogy much easier. And so what I'm going to do is let me share my screen.
I'm getting an echo from you.
Yeah, why don't you turn yours up, Mary?
Up, down.
Turn your sound up and I'll turn mine off.
How do you turn it up? I don't know how you make it go on.
Uh-oh.
So
I don't
it's
know.
easy to, yeah, and Mary, can you let me mute you?
You made it big.
Okay, I think everybody's muted now. So Worldcat has a nice, easy URL for remembering. It's just worldcat.org, and this is what you get. And I have one account, but I'm going to work through the process of creating an account just so you guys see. It's really easy. I'm going to call it MSL Genealogy. Oops. I go into free account before we do this. And I'll create a password. Give them my email address. You have to click that you're more than you're 16 years old or older. And I hate these things because I can never. I got it right the first time. And create account. That's, oh. Okay, so let's, sorry, I didn't realize that I couldn't do boats. There's a boat, there's a boat, there's a boat. Come on. Okay. So I now have this account because we're going to talk about a couple features that you need to have an account for. So they know who you are. Now, my grandfather's family came from Yorkshire back around 1800. So let's say I want to look for background on Yorkshire. So I'm going to put in Yorkshire History. And like I showed you with, when I showed you Minerva and MainCat, you have even more options here. So I can restrict this to just books. And I can restrict it to English. And let's just choose 1 year. And then I'm going to, let's see what we get on the next page. Oh, here's one that sounds interesting. Yorkshire murders, manslaughter, madness, and executions. So let's say I wanted to, I go in here and I look at this. Well, first of all, looking at this, I'm not going to be able to get this easily because none of these libraries that hold it are in the US. So right there, I've got a problem. But let's say I'm making a trip to Scotland in the near future. So what I can do is I can do add to a list. I'm going to make a new list called Yorkshire History. I'm going to make it private. hit create list. And this is now on that list. So if I go here, there it is. And one of the nice things on this, let's say in this case, since it is only available in the UK, I can add a tag, let's say UK trip. Oh, sorry, yeah, I have to check this. And so if I then make a trip, I can go and look for the books tagged UK trip and find the ones I wanted to look for when I was in Scotland. But let's do something a little closer to home. David Hackett Fisher is a US historian. And I didn't actually spell his name right, and I did that deliberately, but one comes up. So let's go into this. And this is about the town of Concord in Massachusetts. So again, I can hit add to a list. I don't want to put it in Yorkshire history because it's not about Yorkshire. So let me put this into Massachusetts social history. And again, I happen to make most of my lists private, but you can make them public. And now this one, okay, I can see that NEHGS has a copy, which they tend to not do interlibrary loan, but I see that both Northeastern and Brandeis have copies, and they often do interlibrary loan, which I'm going to talk about next week. I'm not going to go into the mechanics of that this week. I'll talk about that next week. The Minuteman Library Network is sort of the Massachusetts equivalent of Minerva. It's a, it's the public library network in Massachusetts. And so usually things that have that as a holding here in Maine, we can get that for you if there isn't a copy already in Maine. Now, if I want to see what this is listed as, remember when I talked about Ursus and Minerva, I talked about the difference between keywords and subject headings. These are the subject headings that are standard vocabulary. And so if I wanted to look at books about early social history and sociology in New England, I can bring that up. And you'll see that it's, here's one about pre-Civil War in Boston and Charleston. Here's one about American manufacturing. Various others like that. There are only 8 listed. So that tells me that that's a pretty restricted subject heading. So let's go back to this. It does give you information about the book. In this case, it says it was edited by him, not written. And again, it talks about its 6 honors theses done at Brandeis. But let's say I notice, oh, okay, I misspelled his name. I can click on him as an author and get all of his books. I'm not seeing the one that's my favorite. Let's try. There it is. Here it is an audiobook, which I would not recommend this book as an audiobook. But one nice thing here, I'm like, okay, there's the listing for that. This is about a 3-inch thick book that's full of statistics and tables. So let's click on all editions and formats. And this is only coming up as an audiobook, which is interesting. Let's click here and see what we get. Not finding it the way I want it. So let's type up here. And it's still, oh, there it is. So again, if I wanted to add to the list, since I've already started this one, I just have to click here and add to the selected list. Now, let's say I wanted the to cite this in the paper. If I click here where it says Cite Export, this is the Chicago Manual of Style, or I can click here and get the MLA citation, or here is the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, and Harvard. These are the standard academic styles. And you can then just go like this, copy it, and then copy it into your paper. And this is one reason it's really nice. If we go up here, let me go into my thing, and we go here to the list, you can do a citations view here, and then export it as rich text format, which you can then plunk into Word. Isn't that handy? Or I can, let's say I decide I want to cite things by Chicago style, same thing, I can export it. These are programs for managing citations. I don't tend to use them, but rich text format will go into Word or into Google Documents or whatever the Apple version is. But this, you know, the list feature, you can also add a note here saying, you know, whatever you want. So you can add some commentary about, oh, this one wasn't really useful, or, you know, buy this if you see it, or at a used book sale, or, you know, got halfway through it before it was due at the library, order again. And so that's really handy. Now, these are both by the same person, but you can, if you have multiple people, you can sort it by author. And so then when you do the citations view, they are in the right order. So can you see why I like this? Now, one drawback on this is it's not everybody. So for example, for Maine, it only pulls the Ursus listings, not the Minerva listings. In other words, it's the in Maine, it's mostly the university libraries and the state library that get pulled, not like the Lewiston Public Library or Portland, which is a downfall of which is a shame. But this is really more looking for things that, if you've looked at MainCat and there's no copy in state, looking to see if there's a copy anywhere, or on more obscure topics that you're looking for where there doesn't happen to be a good book in Maine, to see if there's one somewhere else. So for example, this is a county in Pennsylvania. So the state library doesn't really have much on it because we really don't collect outside of New England. And so this is giving me almost 1,000 results, but it would be a good start if I'm looking for books from about Susquehanna County because I had ancestors there. So, and then the other thing is if you've got something like this that's 1888, you want to do one of a couple things. One is to look and see if it's been reprinted. Because if you look here, now this is a book on demand, so it's probably not in many library systems. Let's check. Well, a few libraries have it. One of the things being here in Maine is often you get Canadian libraries that are closer than many US libraries, but we can't do interlibrary loan from Canadian sources. But this does tell me that you might be able to get, there are some public libraries, and I know Cornell sometimes does interlibrary loan. I don't remember what the New York Public Library System does, but this tells you might be able to get a hard copy by interlibrary loan, but because it's before 1924, it's also worth looking to see if this has been digitized and if it's somewhere like Google Books or archive.org in their digitized books. But at least it's, it's giving you the citation to go look for it. So let's see if we go into one of these. Yeah, see, this is telling us that Internet Archive has it, which is archive.org. But the other thing you can do, like with Minerva, MainCat, Ursus, is you can click here and see what comes up under the more controlled vocabulary, where there's 174 options instead of the 1,000 you got for Susquehanna County history. And so if I would probably start with this to see if you can find what you need, just because it's less than 1/5 of the citations. So, and because it's controlled vocabulary, it's going to be more directed or more focused on the topic. So, and again, if let's say we want to look at, how about this one? Again, I can do add to list and start Susquehanna County list, hit create list. And then go back here and, again, it's a nice list. You can save your searches. You can write reviews. You can actually favorite certain libraries. So let's go back here and do this. And if you click there, it takes you there. So when it says add to favorites, I'm going to say that NEHGS, and I don't, this one it doesn't matter. I'm going to hit yes. And so if I then go back to my account, but the advantage to this is I want to check just their catalog. It takes me to their catalog, library information, and so on. So that's kind of handy if you have 2 or 3 that, let's say you've got one, you've got a brother who lives near Dartmouth. Maybe you make Dartmouth a favorite and sometimes you go into just their catalog. And so that's handy. On my original account, on my personal account rather than this one, I for a long time had the library that was near where my parents lived favorited, because it was, if I was in here and I wanted to look at something there, it was an easy way to get to it. So I use it a lot for the list feature. Is really the biggest feature I use this for, is because in Ursus you can't save a list. I often use Worldcat and save lists in Worldcat. And that and the citation export are really why it's a free account. So if you're doing research on a topic, it's a handy way to keep track of what you've looked at, what you haven't looked at, what you'd like to look at. And again, that's how you can use the tags, is things like order on ILL or looked at, don't need, or something like that, as a way of keeping track of things you've looked at but that weren't helpful. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and restart my video. Any questions at this point? Can you see how this would be a handy thing to use?
Now, can I assume in MainCat, obviously Worldcat would be even better because it's broader and it reaches far more libraries. But I was curious, do you have those same features in MainCat or most of them?
Not really.
Okay. So yet another reason why this is handy.
Yeah, it's this. One reason I wanted to do this after having done Ursus and MainCat is Ursus and MainCat really don't have the list or the citation export features. And so that's why this is handy. And particularly if you're getting into more, if you're looking at the history of 19th century railroads, which is a perfectly reasonable topic to want to delve into, you're probably going to find more resources outside of Maine than in Maine. And so, and you're going to find them even in Maine, at the more academic libraries. The little, the town library in the town of 4,500 people is not going to have 17 books on the history of 19th century railroads. You might be lucky to get 1 book on railroad history. And so if you're really looking in depth at something, you're going to want to look beyond Maine, probably. I mean, we've got good libraries here, don't get me wrong. But
limited budgets and space.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's going to be places like the New York Public Library and the Library of Congress, which is pulled into this. You will, and the Library of Congress doesn't loan out books, but the fact that you can search their catalog along with all of these others, can be helpful. One of the interesting things, and I'll talk about this more next week when I talk about interlibrary loan, one of the things you can do on these searches, let's say I want Yorkshire surnames. I can limit this to articles. And let's say, here's one in a magazine called Folk Life.
Oh, you want a screen share?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I get so excited about what I'm talking about that I don't. So you see here, I limited this to just articles, not books. There's a magazine called Folk Life, and there's an 9-page article on coal mining in West Yorkshire. You can order this on interlibrary loan. Here's one on inbreeding and surnames, a projection into Easter Island's past. How that came up as part of Yorkshire surnames, I'm not sure. But again, if your little local town library does not have the American Journal of Physical Anthropology, which, you know, I know my small town library does not have this, you can then order that through a copy through interlibrary loan. Actually, this looks like an interesting one. I may need to order that. And you can add articles to your lists just the way you can add. So I'm going to put this into Yorkshire History. And I could then ask our interlibrary loan person to get a copy of this article for me. Last month, I take part in a group that we get together once a month and pull apart a National Genealogical Society quarterly article. And you know, most of us are in the process of getting our certified genealogy credential. And so it's part of our continuing education. And last month, there was one issue. You know, we have, I don't know, 50 plus years at the library of this journal. And there was one issue missing. And needless to say, it was the issue I needed. So I took the citation of the article, emailed it to our interlibrary loan librarian, and within about 3 days, she had gotten me a PDF copy of the article. So I'll talk about that next week in interlibrary loan, because that's one of the things that interlibrary loan is really helpful for, beyond just getting books that aren't otherwise here in state. Because Maine has 2 levels of interlibrary loan. There's the in-state, and then there's if we have to go out of state, which is more complicated, but gets you more books.
DJ?
Yes.
Is this a Worldcat? Does it have, is it really a world? I mean, all the continents, well, not all the continents, but most of them, the countries?
Yeah, it's mostly English language. Although I've gotten things in other languages sometimes. But yeah, I have gotten citations from Australia that are just okay. But again, if it's a journal article, you may be able to get it.
But like, do they have all the different universities, say in Africa, listed? Are they part of it? Some
are, you know, if they've chosen to be. Now some are not, but their attempt is to be everybody. But like many of these things, it's heavily focused on first world English-speaking countries, meaning US, Canada, UK, Australia. But I have seen things from other places. Now I'm usually searching in English, So I think that I don't know how it works that well searching in other languages. I have not done it on a consistent enough basis to be able to,
Everybody's getting to speak English now,
yeah.
around the world.
So, but it's a first approximation beyond Maine for those of us who live here of how easy is it going to be able to get this obscure book. Because if all that comes up for the US is the Library of Congress, you're probably out of luck for getting a copy of the book. Not necessarily, because our interlibrary loan librarian does sometimes have access to things that aren't here, but it gets more complicated. This is a first step, and it's most likely to be the most helpful.
Now, BJ, in this one, it does say under find a copy online, view full text. Does that necessarily mean that
It
it's
may
freely
mean there
available,
is one.
or-
Let's take a look.
'cause I know sometimes it'll say that, but then you can't actually access it. So I was curious in this case.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
it's
one
JSTOR.
does. Yeah.
I always have issues trying to use JSTOR. But in this case, you can sometimes.
Yeah. For those of you who live in Maine, the Bangor Library includes JSTOR in their library card. And so if you're interested in more academic stuff and you happen to be in Bangor when the library is open, anyone who has who's a Maine resident can get a card free at Bangor. So I keep a Bangor card just for JSTOR access. But you can get some free if you sign up free there. I think it's at 100 articles. So there are options like that. But if this one wasn't available, or if I didn't have JSTOR access, again, I can ask for interlibrary loan. Thank you, Steve. Yes. About a little over a third of the stuff is in English at Worldcat. And a little under 2/3 is in other languages. And it's got 482 million bibliographic records. So they really are trying to be Worldcat. I mean, it's aimed at interlibrary loan librarians and university faculty and students. So they are trying to be good and complete. Okay. But, and one of the things I have in the past told people is if we can't find a book, if they come in to me with a title and we can't find the book in Worldcat, there's a good chance they've got the title wrong in that case. The one exception to that is more recent self-published stuff. I have sometimes found self-published things at Amazon that are not at Worldcat. But again, those are not getting accessioned into academic libraries, which is what a lot of these, or the big library systems, because they're often ebooks only, and just because you heard an author on the radio doesn't mean that there's a published hard copy book that a library can accession, and most libraries don't buy self-published works. As Karen mentioned earlier, it goes back to space and money. We only buy at the state library. We buy things that are about Maine, and we buy things that have been reviewed in the major journals. And we don't buy everything. I mean, we probably don't even buy 1/10 of the things that are reviewed in the publications we use, like Publishers Weekly and Library Journal. I think we're probably closer to 5%. And that's of the things that get reviewed. And a lot of stuff never gets reviewed. So, you know, that's one reason I often turn to Worldcat is when a patron comes in and has a title, if I can't find it in MainCat, is it a case of the person has mangled the title or has just no library in Maine bought it? And with Worldcat, I get much closer to does this book exist? And if it's not in Worldcat somewhere, I assume that the book doesn't exist or the title has just been completely mangled from hearing it on the radio or some such. So, okay, so let me stop sharing my screen again. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to stop recording.